we have a right to live a life that is not just grinding and then going to bed at the end of the day and doing it all over again.
Hey friend, welcome to the Ready to Rise podcast with your host, me, Audrey Rose. This is the podcast all about taking your life to the next level. Join me on my journey as I create a life that I'm obsessed to wake up for every day. I hope that you are ready to create a life that you really, really love. Are you ready to rise? Okay, cool. Okay, so you guys, I'm Valerie Lynn, and I met you at Crystal Jacobo's event, Galentine's, which was so much fun. And I just want to have you introduce yourself a little bit more before I kind of talk about what, got me so excited that you spoke about at that event.
Yeah. So, first of all, thanks for having me. I think you're such a badass human. And yeah, I just love being able to collaborate and I love watching your podcast grow. I think it's awesome. But yeah, I'm Valerie Lynn. We met at a amazing personal development event through kind of one of our shared mentors. It was awesome. And so the conversation that I was sharing was called Unmute Yourself. And I think we'll get into some of that later. But I have I have kind of a fire and a passion for helping women to share their voices and their stories. And so I believe that women can honestly just have so much impact and so much change. And especially when we're able to share what we've gone through, what we're going through, and start to advocate for ourselves, I think that women can change the world kind of. I mean, that sounds really big and broad and fluffy, but you get the idea. So that's kind of where I'm focused on right now is speaking, but also how do I create as many platforms and stages for women and help them, tell their story, help them take the microphone. I work also in a corporate setting. So Audrey, you work in healthcare. I also work in healthcare, but I work behind the scenes. So
Right.
I work in corporate leadership and that world, and also in a healthcare setting. And so that's been really interesting, but it's taught me so much. So I have over 15 years of business experience from that and consulting in leadership in that way. And so the other piece that I like to bring to the conversation is, I think that women leaders or women all kind of have a leader inside of themselves, but part of the unmuting yourself is to embrace that leader that's your soul-led leader, within you. And so I think there's a lot of narratives that still exist in business and in corporate that we need to kind of break away from. And once we start doing that, we're able to show up in a really authentic, beautiful way that's super transformational.
Oh, I love that, especially what you just said about showing up in a beautiful, authentic way. I just feel like when I heard you speaking on stage about you were on fire, man. But it's unmute yourself, take up space, just
Yeah.
get out there. And I feel like as women, it's so interesting. The generations previous to us have all been very sit still and look pretty, right? And there's that whole narrative. And then I think my mom personally and my family, my mom's generation and kind of into my grandma, they were very much starting to take up space in the workplace and starting to change that way. And
Yeah.
then I think that they all struggled with doing all the things and somehow made it work. I don't know how, but our generation is starting to look more at okay, how do I do all of this and show up authentically and show up for what I believe in and what I really
Right.
do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, this generation, these I don't know, millennials and Gen Z to me
Yeah.
get a really negative rap. And
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a crock of BS. Sorry, I
Yeah.
really, I curse a little bit. I, just because I think, not that there aren't some of that maybe floating through, but every generation has been entitled in some way, shape, or form. And what this generation I think is doing is saying we're done with it.
Yeah.
We can't handle this anymore. I mean, that this is your whole mission.
Yeah.
It's basically saying we have a right to live a life that is not just grinding and then going to bed at the end of the day and doing it all over again. And so that's where this also comes into play is unmute yourself is starting to say, how are you showing up and speaking up for the fact that you want to live a really rich, abundant life. And that is completely why you're here on this earth. Right. So
100%. And I think that, of course, it plays into all of that, speaking up, right? So what you say, unmute yourself, speak up, talk
Yeah,
about it. Like the only way that we can change, even in our just our small like nuclear home, but also in our jobs and in everything else, is we have to talk about it. Like find the solutions for what's burning us out and what we can't grind anymore. Like the part that we
right.
can do.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and I'd be curious what your thoughts on this are too, but I feel like we're going to see a really radical shift in the way that we deliver healthcare to,
Yeah.
especially like the US, the model of care, I think is about to shift
Yeah.
just because it's going to have to. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, right? Like, I think we need to start embracing some of those conversations and to start to really hear what people want. And that's what's going to help us like guide the future. We can't keep like digging our, we can't keep digging
Mhm.
our heels in and doing what we've always done because that's what
Yeah.
we're comfortable doing. So
Yeah.
it's having those, like you said, it's like having those really open, authentic conversations. And when everyone's being a little more willing to have empathy and open their heart differently, then that's where the magic's going to happen. You can really
Yeah.
build something. So,
I love that because, like, as you know, somebody who's working as a floor nurse, basically, even in California, where the ratios are great, it's still exhausting. And going to talk to the leaders about this, it's like, oh, you're just scared, you get scared as like a little old floor nurse to go say something like, because we believe the response will probably be, one of those nice, fluffy responses. Well, we're working on it, we're trying, okay, let you know. But really, if we have these authentic conversations about how even a California nurse with a great ratio is feeling exhausted, then we can set the stage for that change to come
yeah.
and less people to leave this career, which is really, I mean, the goal at the end of the day is we have a growing population.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, yeah, if they could, I think the problem happens is when it's like, yes, we know, and then that's the end of the conversation. Versus, okay, tell me more. Like,
Yeah.
what would help? Like, if you start to ask more thought-provoking questions, like, okay, even if we can't offer you, I don't know, right now, a ton more pay, what are some ideas that you have? Because I bet you guys all on the floor could
Yeah.
really come together and say, okay, well, maybe we should try this. Let's maybe do XYZ. And starting to shift that method of thinking is super important. And it's too bad that you feel that way, that like level of fear around going to, and this is where like leadership does need to change as well, right? Like dramatically, but where you feel so scared to go and say, like, guess what? This is actually how not just me, but other people are feeling, but I'm going to be the one that speaks up. I'm going to be the one that goes
Yeah.
first. And that's really scary to approach leaders. And I think we need to shift a little bit of that, right? Like we
Yeah.
really need to start opening up differently.
I love that. And I love what you just said about being the first one to talk. Sometimes you're so scared to stand up, but you
Yeah.
know that if somebody will just take that leadership or take that, that opportunity to speak up about things, other people who are feeling the same way will finally follow once
Mm-hmm.
they know that their voice is being heard. So, like, for everyone listening, I mean, even in your home, you can do this. Like, even just
Oh,
as a wife or a mother, it's like you got to say something because
right.
otherwise nothing's going to change.
Definitely, definitely. And I also think that that is a contributor to burnout.
Yeah.
So burnout has a lot to do, I think, with the energy that we hold in our body. And so if we're not saying something, it's just like stuck and you
Yeah.
feel like crap. Like you don't feel good and it just kind of continues to sit there like this poison. And so we've all probably felt that where we just feel like this dim light, you're kind of just going with it, whatever. And that's where some of that burnout is happening. So that's why I think I'm also really passionate because the more that you can, and especially when it's a good cause, like the one that you are activating, for right now, like the one that you're all about with, helping remedy burnout is such a positive cause. If you're like for that and you have this voice for that, there's nothing wrong about like speaking up and sharing that passion. So I think that's where we get this idea of like burnout means you need less work. And
Yeah.
it's not always you need less. Sometimes you need less, but sometimes you also need more of your voice, more of that passion to come through so you feel alive.
I love that. Like I just posted, there's this quote in like Instagram Reels that I keep hearing and now I can't find the audio, of course, but it's like that guy, I forget his name, but he's always hiking and doing all these really fun things. His account is really great, but he kind of got this trending audio about like burnout is not about doing like less, but it's about doing more of the things you love. And
Right.
it's so true, like what you just said. And I would love to chat about that a little bit deeper into, I don't know
Mhm.
if your Airbnb trips or all of, however we want to, frame
Yeah.
that, but if that was part of you kind of like remedying burnout or anything like that, or if that was just fun. But I would love to chat about that journey for you.
Yeah. So yeah, I basically went on an Airbnb journey across the US during the pandemic, which was something that I had always kind of like dreamt of and thought would be super cool, but never had the courage to really do. I mean, I was the girl, so to kind of back up, like I was that person who didn't think she had a story. Like I was that person who just was kind of going with the flow, lived in her hometown for a long time, and nothing wrong with like living in your hometown, but I just was doing that, typical life of like, okay, get a house and do the thing. I actually ended up like going through a divorce. And that was kind of like the start of me actually like stepping up and saying, I want a life of my own. And so going through this process, I would say it ended up remedying a certain level of burnout that I didn't know I had. And it was just, points where I got so tired of my own BS. Like I got so tired of my own, I guess you could call it burnout, honestly, just like being burned out on like not living an authentic life, true to me. And so I started kind of just taking like scary steps. And one of the things I ended up doing was doing that. I started out like with not a plan of doing Airbnb life. I just started out going through like a breakup during the pandemic and realizing, what am I doing? Like I have this condo in Seattle area, which it was great, but I knew it wasn't going to be my home forever. And I thought, well, do I want to go through a pandemic here in this condo by myself, or do I want to go through it on a beach? So I
Yes.
decided to sell everything. Was able to rent it out. Thank goodness. The rental market was good enough to do that. And I packed up my little car, the trunk of my car, and I drove down and stayed with some family and friends and was able to find a furnished spot. I kid you not, this is like abundance, like or abundance. It's
Yes.
manifestation, like realized.
Yeah.
Furnished spot literally on a beach. And it was like, I mean, it was amazing. It was a beautiful, beautiful spot. But also I knew, okay, this is a short-term lease. And the beach doesn't fix everything. You still have to do the inner work, right? And so my journey wasn't done. And I, was able to then go, okay, well, what do I want to do next? And then it led to, okay, I'll Airbnb here. And then I kept going with that. And so it was scary. Like it was
Yeah.
fun for sure, but it was also me like ripping through some like, uncomfortable situations and being like, okay, I can figure this out. And of course I had moments through that where I was like, what am I doing? What am I going crazy? Like, is this the right lifestyle? But also it was the most amazing, epic like journey that was so soul fulfilling.
Oh, I
Mhm.
bet.
Yeah.
I think sometimes like when we step out of that comfort zone to like learn who we really are and like find out what we really want out of life, then we change our life to like one of so much less burnout. And you start to learn what you really want, what you want to stand up for, what you want to incorporate.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah,
huge.
right. And I think a lot of the time, and I'm that very like risk adverse person,
Yeah.
less so now because I've like, done some crazy stuff. But I feel as though you're gonna learn something. So we always get afraid of like, well, what if something doesn't work out? What if XYZ? Because I think honestly, we have like a culture and a society that tells us like you need to have all of this stuff figured out and
Huh.
all of those things. But the truth of the matter is, you're very capable.
Hey, you guys, it's that time where there's just a quick announcement. I'm super pumped that this burnout movement is seriously taking over. Like, you guys, we had so much fun in the previous Bliss Master class, and we have opened up the Master course. It's super exciting. The Master course is open right now. You can join. We are kicking things off, and that's all on Instagram or, helloaudreyrose.com, where you can get all those details. But I really want to let you know that I'm so excited to announce that we are having another virtual masterclass, and this one is all about honoring our bodies. We're slowing down. We're going to do a little sound bath. We are going to learn a lot about gut health, and it's just so exciting. This one is also going to be virtual. So if you just text honor to 707-347-0723. You're going to get on the list for that, and there's so much more going on. I am so excited for you, and be on the lookout. If you go to helloaudreyrose.com/events, you're going to be the first to know about all of the new courses coming up, the coaching we have coming out, and the best part, my favorite, the retreats. Woohoo! I'm so excited, you guys. Check it out. And as always, everything's going to be posted on my Instagram, which is at Hello Audrey Rose.
No matter what the situation is, it's like you will figure it out. Like, and so I think you only really believe that through action. So you have to kind of start taking action steps to actually show yourself how to treat yourself and that you are capable.
Yep. It's so easy to say, but it is harder to do. But I love, like, to piggyback off of what you said, just do those action steps and then start to feel, just like truly take a minute to see how that feels for you and
Yeah.
what works for you and follow that. Yeah.
I would also say, like, to add to that, burnout to me is if you're noticing, it's a very real thing. So first of all, like, let's not dim that down. Like, it's very, very real. But if you are feeling that, I feel as though it's a sign to you. And of course, I'm sure you talk about this all the time. This is like giving you those breadcrumbs of there's something that needs to change. Right. And so it's starting to take inventory of what is going on. And maybe it is doing less of something so that you can make space to do more of something else. But I think it's really that, like, flag, that alert to yourself of what needs to happen. And this is, like, actually such a beautiful thing to start to say, I get to now try some stuff. Like, if I'm starting to experience a level of burnout for myself, it's a good indicator of, like, okay, I need to start trying some new things and talking to some new people, getting into some new groups, like trying a class I've never done before, reading a different book, like whatever it is, to start realizing, oh, okay, I need a little more here and maybe a little less over here.
You know what you just said is so perfect. Like, for me personally, you literally just brought together like why I'm putting on a retreat and like why I'm doing these things, because it is for people to try new things.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Right.
that's what helped me through my burnout. Like, I was like, whoa, wait, this sound bath meditation's a little woo for me. I'm not so sure about this. And now I'm just like, every Monday night, let's go. What are we
Right.
doing? Hot yoga. Okay, like, let's try these new things, because the like you said something earlier about kind of like life becoming accumulated inside, and burnout does that too, right? Like, all of our emotions, if we're not dealing with it or expressing it,
Mm-hmm.
everything stays stuck. So finding those ways to clear that out through different types of healing modalities or whatever it is that you have to change, like even going and traveling across the US and Airbnbs, or maybe just
Oh,
more time at the
yeah.
beach, whatever it is.
Yeah. Anything that you do that comes from a place of kind of this, like, visceral, like, I'm scared, but yes, I want to just do this thing. That something is kind of telling me, like, oh, go try it, is
Yeah.
going to be something that teaches you about yourself and can lead to really deep healing. Like, anything that you do can be a healing journey. It doesn't have to be that you go, I mean, sound baths are freaking amazing. Okay. But I'm just saying, it doesn't have to be like, okay, you have to go do acupuncture and meditate 12 hours a day and sit, like, very, still on a mountaintop. It's none of that. Sometimes, honestly, for me, like, these conversations are super healing and
Yeah.
super amazing. And this lights me up. And so there's different methods of what you can find that are going to help you kind of sweep away the cobwebs of, like, those corners of your spirit that you've been ignoring. And you'll be able to, kind of be reinvigorated again.
So good. I just have to re-highlight that one more time. Like, you don't have to go sit on top of a mountaintop for like your whole life. And like, as I can imagine how many people out there that are busy moms, wives, whatever you're doing in your life. You're busy in the corporate world. You have a 12-hour bedside nurse shift, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're so busy in this day and age that we can't go sit on top of a mountain for like 12 hours a day, right? To meditate. So it is so easy to incorporate these things into our day, but you have to just try new things and learn what works. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
ah, can you tell everybody like where to find you? Because you have so much going on and people like need to see. I mean, I love what you're doing as well.
Yeah. So you can come hang on Instagram at Hey Valerie Lynn. And then I'm going to be launching a podcast actually in a couple of months. So I had an old podcast and I was thinking about rebranding it. And this is something to tell the community too, because I feel like this is
Yeah.
something I talk to women about as well, is that it's okay to change your mind. If something is not aligning with your soul and you are in the middle of doing something, whatever it is, I don't care how many years you put into that role or that title or that whatever, that house, like you are allowed to change your mind. It's your God-given right to be able to do so. And so I was thinking I was going to rebrand this podcast, and I was like, I spent money on doing a new cover photo. I was like, okay, here's my branding colors. And I looked at it and I was like, why am I not feeling like excited? Like, what is going on here? And I was on a walk and I thought, I can't do this. It needs to be so much more freaking fun. Like if you know me, you know, I'm like loud, I'm weird, I'm just all things. And I'm like, this podcast needs to be me. It doesn't like everything I talk about is you got to get out of the box, man. And so I am going to be launching a new podcast. So stay up to date on that. But it's going to be called The Women on Top, because we're going to be sassy about it. And it's going to be focused on women and women leaders and women moms and just all of the different roles that women have, because I think it's like time that we really just heard from so many more female voices. So
yeah. Oh, I love it so much. Okay. And can you leave us with just a self-care or a self-love tip, like anything you like to do that you want to pass on?
Yeah, I think this isn't as typical. Like, obviously, I think, do the fluffy things or the non-fluffy things or whatever it is that you feel good doing. But I think what I was going to say is something that I did last night, which was tap into your own needs and start becoming, we hear this term compassion and we think of, it being flowery and hearts, and it sounds so soft. And as go-getter women, we don't like the term compassion because we want to be achievers. But tap into the self-compassion. The more that you do that, the more that you will be able to like lead your life in a different way. And so I think the self-care tip is to really just learn yourself more and more. Find out what your energy's like. Pay attention to your body, to those things that it's telling you. Get quiet with yourself when you can, even if you have to lock yourself in a bathroom or a closet or whatever, just for 2 minutes, and really start to get to know this vessel that is guiding you through life. And that's where that compassion comes in. So the example I will give is last night, I just had this like desire to go and work at a coffee shop, and journal and just like work on stuff. And there was really no reason for me to do so. Like, I have a house, I've got like options of places I can work from. And so I told my partner, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go down and just do this. And he was kind of like, okay, I mean, whatever. And I just said, I have this like feeling, I just need to get out, get in that energy. And it was exactly what I needed. It was like, the more that you can say those kinds of, it's kind of awkward and scary. Like, I don't know, for some reason, it still is hard for me to sometimes say, hey, this is a thing I want to go do, just because all of a sudden I had this pull to like get out of here and go somewhere else. But the more that you practice that and like start to learn really who you are, the more that like life is just going to unfold in a really awesome and magical, beautiful way. So it's my tip.
Like everything that you say, I just want to quote for everyone. So good. Oh, it was so good connecting with you. Like, I can't thank you enough for coming on.
I'm so glad that we were able to do this. It's so good to see your face again. It was so awesome to be able to hug you. I hope to be able to do that again soon at an event.
I'm so happy you got to make it to another amazing episode of the Ready to Rise podcast. Don't hesitate to share this with a friend that needs to hear it. Send it straight to their DMs. Take a screenshot, throw it up in your stories, tag me in it at Hello Audrey Rose. And don't forget, if you leave a written review on the iTunes app, that also helps people find it. So if it resonates with you, help others find it. And I can't wait to hear how much you loved this awesome episode. Have a blessed day.